You may begin.
Thank you, Veronica. It is Monday, April 8th at 6 o'clock. I am calling to order the April 2024 TAB meeting for the city of Boulder. I think we should review the technical rules first, because that's the step I always forget. So our technical host, Veronica, is that you this evening?
Yes, it is.
Thank
All
you.
right. I am going to share screens. Please let me know if you're able to see my screen. Perfect. We are pleased to have you join us today to strike a balance between meaningful, transparent engagement and online security. The following rules will be applied for this meeting. This meeting has been called to conduct the business of the City of Boulder. Activities that disrupt, delay, or otherwise interfere with the meeting are prohibited. The time for speaking is limited to 3 minutes. No person shall speak except when recognized by the person presiding or myself, and no person shall speak for longer than that time allotted. Each person shall register to speak at the meeting using the person's real name. Any person believed to be using a name other than the one they are commonly known by will not be permitted to speak. Please use the raise hand function to be able to be recognized for public comment. If you're on the phone, you will need to press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. No video will be permitted except for city officials, employees, and invited speakers and presenters. All others will participate by voice only. The person presiding at the meeting shall enforce these rules by muting anyone who violates any rules. The Q&A function is enabled. It will be used for individuals to communicate with myself. It should be used for technical and online platform related questions only. If an attendee attempts to use the Q&A for any other reasons other than seeking assistance or technical assistance, the city reserves the right to disable the individual's access to the chat. Only the host and individuals designated by the host will be permitted to share their screen during the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I did see a phone participant raise hand, and I'm wondering if that's Trini. But I don't know Trini's number. I just looked it up. All I have is her email.
I am not sure either.
Okay.
That's me.
Hi, Trini. Thank you.
Okay, we will.
Okay, great. Glad to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. That's very timely because the next matter on the agenda is the approval of the March 2024 minutes. Trini, you and I were the only two board members present tonight who were at that meeting. I know that we've been in email contact with our secretary today about the minutes. Do you have any further additions, amendments, changes, or anything on the minutes as revised? No. Okay, great.
No,
Neither
that's
do I.
great.
Thank you, Meredith, for making those changes. The revised tab minutes were posted on the website today at about 3:30. And so I will entertain Feeney's motion to approve those minutes.
And I second it.
Okay. Sounds like we have two people approving those minutes. Thank you so much. Okay, welcome to the new members. I am so glad Mike is here with us, Mike Mills and Darcy Kitching. Jen, I don't see Jen. So Jen Oaks is at a conference but was intending to join. We will see if she comes and swear her in due time, but I don't see her on the attendance at the moment. But we can go ahead and administer the oath for Mike and Darcy.
All right, is everyone able to see my screen? Okay,
Yes.
cool. Our first new member is Darcy Kitching. Darcy, would you be able to read the oath you see displayed?
Sure. I, Darcy Kitching, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and of the State of Colorado and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Boulder, and faithfully perform the duties of the office of a member of the Transportation Advisory Board for which I am about to enter.
Thank you, Darcy. Our next new member is Michael Mills, who goes by Mike. Mike, would you be able to read the oath you see displayed?
Mills, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and of the State of Colorado and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Boulder, and faithfully perform the duties of the office of a member of the Transportation Advisory Board for which I am about to enter.
Thank you, Mike. Um, I'll just say welcome to the new tab members, and I'll return the meeting back to you, Tiliana.
Okay, thank you. Do interrupt me if we notice Jen Oaks getting on, because we should swear her in as soon as we can so she can participate as a full member. But welcome. So we have 4 tab members at the moment, and our chair and vice chair for 2023 up till today have both graduated on. And so we need to do an election of all of our officers. We would do it anyway, but at the moment we don't have anybody who has expressed an interest in being chair or vice chair. Typically our secretary is by appointment. She gets voluntold. But if we have any nominations for chair and vice chair, I will entertain those now.
I nominate Tila
I would
Duhane.
like to nominate, yeah,
I'm sorry.
Darcy beat you to it. Thank you. Is
think
anyone
we're all
else
gonna say
interested
that.
in being chair?
I'm interested in nominating you a third
Oh.
time.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. It's not going to be a nail biter of a vote here. And I would, in the interest of carrying on some continuity, I would be pleased to have Trini Willerton, if she will accept the nomination, be nominated and considered for vice chair, for my vice chair for this next year.
Oh, I would love that.
Great.
Thank you, Tila.
Thank you. Would anyone else have interest in being vice chair? At the moment, it means if I'm absent, you run the meetings, and typically the vice chair also can attend the agenda setting meeting, so they have something of a clue of what's coming down the pike in case they do have to chair the meeting. Otherwise, we're all pretty equal here. It's a pretty egalitarian board. So seeing no other nominations, it sounds, and I'm forgetting how to do this because it's been a couple of years since I've run it, but I believe we just have the one slate of candidates. Tila Duhame for chair, Trini Willerton for vice chair. All in favor of those candidates, please say aye, because we can't count hands.
Aye.
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 Terrific. Thank you so much. Meredith, are you able to be our very able secretary for yet another year?
I'm willing. Thank you, Tila.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Meredith.
We really appreciate your
Thank
help and your
you.
service. Okay. Well, that's sort of how some of the sausage is made. Now we're going to move to item 5 on the agenda, which is public comment. If any members of the public wish to speak, you need to raise your hand. And we'll let Veronica handle this.
Sounds good. The raise hand function is at the bottom of Zoom if anyone does not know where it's located. All right, we have one raised hand.
Hi, Lynn.
Lynn, I will ask for you to confirm that you're able to speak.
Lynn Siegel, yeah, I just can't ever believe that I'm the only one, so I like to wait. I like to hear what other people have to say, but nobody apparently has anything to say about transportation in Boulder, which is remarkable to me, since trying to ride my bike the other day in front of Har Hashem, there's these, I don't know what you call them, bollards, things that stick up, and I'm in heavy traffic there on my bike, trying to figure out which lane I get into so I can turn into Har Hashem. Like, what is this? I don't understand it, and it's dangerous because I'm stuck in the traffic and I don't know where to go, what they're trying to tell me to do. Maybe I'm stupid, but if that's the case, then I guess I shouldn't be riding my bike. And in that case, maybe there are other people that are stupid that wouldn't see what to do there, that, you know, maybe that's a possibility. But there's so many places around town, you know, I get to the point where I don't want to go to 28th Street. I'm in Central Boulder because I'm going to have to wait through all this traffic getting across the street when there's 4 people at the intersections and all of them are waiting. You must have some automated systems, and there's plenty of money because you need to be advocating for no housing at the airport, because that's just going to make your problems worse. I want more money for transportation, so it's more friendly for me to ride my bike around town. And I just know there's got to be something about occupancy in a four-way intersection when everyone is waiting, and especially the cars that are idling. At least I'm not adding to carbon footprint on my bike while I'm waiting. I don't care if they go first. I just want things to happen faster than they happen. And I know there's other ways. I just know it. It's just a matter of dollars. And, you know, being constrained is not, you know, your problem is that you have bigger things to deal with, like the airport, like extra housing in this town, which just drives up the population, which just drives up your deficit. And so what are you going to do about it, please? And the transportation-oriented development is just putting people in a place where they're going to have to go from wherever they're going. It's not helping them out to have housing at the TOD because they don't have the things that they need there. And then they're just transporting themselves somewhere else. I want to stop transportation. I don't go anywhere except to go to the grocery store or go to the post office, which I can't go to anymore because they closed the one at Ideal. We need those things located close to us. And the excuse of transportation demand management or transit-oriented developments is a poor one, as Steve Pomerantz indicated in his letter last Friday. Done.
Thank you, Lynn.
It does not look like we have anyone else.
Okay. That's what I see as well. So we will move on. Item 6 on the agenda is an information item. I believe we are going to hear from Brad Moeller, right, from Planning and Development Services. And I'm guessing that's why Chris Haglund is on as well, for the DCS update.
Tila, that
Item.
one
Oh,
is
it's not
just,
Chris.
sorry.
It's-
For the info item, it was just a memo included in the packet, but if there are any
Okay.
questions about the information, Devin is here to help answer questions.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, for
Yeah.
reminding me how the information items work. So I
Yeah,
have
no
skimmed
problem.
it. I didn't study it. I have no questions. So new board members typically, when there's an information item, there will be, this is often when something's been presented that we might be interested in, have questions on, or want to know more about, but it's already been presented to council where there's no particular action or input requested from TAB. And so to kind of shorten the meetings, which is something I'm not doing right now, we changed it to sort of an information item. So we skipped the general sort of presentation of the information that's fairly straightforward and explained in the memo, but it's an opportunity for TAB members to sort of highlight something, ask something about, you know, something that wasn't clear, ask for clarification. And that's what those information items kind of are. But this is a follow-up on a regular work plan item that we have known has been coming for a while. And because it's changing the design and construction standards in the city code, it has to happen through an ordinance. And so it's going through ordinance change kind of procedures at city council, which require, you know, different readings and hearings and things like that. So that's what this item is doing here. If you have any questions, now would be a fine time to raise your hand or wave at me on the Zoom. Mike, yes?
So this is all about the city acquiring streetlights from Excel, which sounds great in terms of accelerating new energy efficient light fixtures. Just wondering if it would help the city to implement lighting for making streets more walkable or bikeable, if this would have any impact on that at all.
Devin, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, thank you, Mike, for the question. And for the record, my name is Devin Joslin. I'm the city's principal traffic engineer. Mike, I think that will give us some more flexibility because we will now be the party responsible for really owning, operating, installing lighting within the city. And so I think it'll give us greater flexibility to look at the lighting needs for all modes and consider how we could install that. That being said, Natalie or Valerie can correct me if I'm wrong, but there really aren't immediate plans. Lighting for those modes would typically be added as part of projects in development. We don't have plans to add lighting on multi-use paths or other areas at this time.
That's correct. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, any other questions on this agenda item? Darcy, Trini? Seeing none, we will move on. The next item, agenda item 7, is an update from staff on the Vision Zero action plan.
And good thing Devin's on because he's taking that one too.
Okay, good evening again, everyone. Again, for the record, my name is Devin Joslin. I'm the city's principal traffic engineer, and I'm here tonight to provide an update on crash trends and Vision Zero action plan implementation. There's really 3 main things that I'll cover tonight. I'm going to provide a full summary of the 2023 severe crash data. Tila and Trini, you'll recall that I presented this information that we had back in October, but that was not a complete data set. That was just through August, I believe, at that time. I'll also provide an update on Vision Zero action plan implementation, and then an update on photo enforcement expansion. And then there's just a few next steps that we'll make you aware of as well. Just for some context and to set the stage here, this slide provides the past 15 years of crash history within the city. And what I want to point out are just a few things on this slide. Over the past 15 years, there were 2 years with 0 fatal crashes in 2015 and 2017. And we've seen a 45% decrease in total crashes in 2023 compared to 2016. And you'll see really since 2016, there's been a downward trend in the total number of crashes occurring throughout the city. And just to directly compare 2022 to 2023, we saw a 4.5% decrease in total crashes in 2023 compared to 2022. And just another note here on terminology. Throughout this presentation, when I refer to a severe crash, that is a crash that's either a fatal crash or a crash that results in serious injuries. But over the past 15 years, severe crashes have accounted for 2.3% of all crashes that occur each year. The next few slides will provide additional context about how crash trends are tracking and how Boulder compares to other Front Range cities. So this slide shows a comparison of what we call areas of concern. And areas of concern are crash types that have a disproportionate number of severe crashes compared to total crashes. And they include crashes like they include such things as crashes involving people walking, biking, and riding a motorcycle, as well as crashes involving people speeding and crashes involving older adults who are 65 and up. When we compare the most recent 3-year crash data to crash data from 2018 to 2020, we see that 5 of 10 areas of concern decreased by 5% or more, while only 1 in 10 areas of concern increased by 5% or more. And that was crashes involving people riding a motorcycle. This slide shows how total and severe crash rates are calculated, total and severe crash rates as calculated against million vehicle miles traveled have changed over the most recent 5-year period for which VMT data was available, 2018 to 2022. It shows that there has been a 30% decrease in the total crash rate in 2022 compared to 2018, and a 12% decrease in the severe crash rate in 2022 compared to 2018. This slide shows one way to compare Boulder's crash rates to other Front Range cities using the crash rate per 100,000 people. The slide indicates that based on 2022 data, Boulder had the second lowest crash rates per 100,000 people. Boulder also had the fewest fatal crashes with 1, while other cities had at least 5 or more. While 0 remains the goal, this illustrates that Boulder is closer to achieving 0 than many other Front Range cities. These next slides will provide the full summary of severe crash data, and most comparisons are drawn between 2022 and 2023. And this slide looks at a comparison of the total crashes that occurred each month in 2022 compared to 2023. And we saw a reduction of 79 total crashes in 2023 compared to 2022. And this corresponds to that approximately 4.5% decrease that was noted on the prior slide. Although the primary focus of this update is on severe crashes, it is important to understand also how total crashes are tracking compared to prior years. This gives a sense of the bigger picture and illustrates how we are tracking on the Vision Zero objective of reducing other types of crashes. Any crash, whether injuries occur or not, has costs to society and can disrupt our lives. Understanding total crash numbers also helps give context to the percentage of total crashes that result in serious injuries or fatalities. This slide compares the monthly severe crashes that occurred in 2022 to 2023. Note that the severe crash data only includes severe crashes that occurred on public streets and excludes any severe crashes that may have occurred on private property. There were 58 severe crashes citywide in 2023, 3 fatal and 55 serious injury. In 2023, the number of severe crashes per month ranged from 3 to 8, and compared to 2022, there were 2 more fatal and 8 more serious injury crashes in 2023. This slide summarizes the modes of travel involved in severe crashes. Most severe crashes involve a vehicle with another vehicle, although severe crashes that involve a vehicle with either a bicyclist or pedestrian are each very similar in number. The most common severe crash types include pedestrian, bicycle, fixed object, right angle, and approach turn. I'll note that none of the severe crashes with either a vehicle involved with a bicyclist or a bicyclist alone involved a B-cycle shared e-bike. 2 of the 3 stand-up scooter severe crashes involved a Lime shared e-scooter. These crash trends emphasize how important the Vision Zero action plan and our Safe Streets and Roads for All grant work is to address bike and ped crashes, since they are overrepresented as compared to their mode share. This slide shows the location of severe crashes by street classification. In 2023, 79% of severe crashes occurred on either a principal arterial or minor arterial. You might recall from the Safe Streets Boulder report that had found that 67% of severe crashes occurred on an arterial roadway between 2018 and 2020. So it's looking like even more severe crashes are occurring on our arterial roadways. Collector and local streets together represent 8% of severe crashes, and sidewalks and multi-use paths together represent 4% of severe crashes. This slide shows the location of severe crashes by intersection or segment type. You can see that most are at signalized intersections or along a segment of a roadway. This slide summarizes the age range of the party responsible for the severe crash. While the age varies, most are in that 20 to 29 age range. This slide shows the age range of all parties involved in severe crashes. As noted previously, severe crashes involving younger and older drivers decreased during the most recent 3-year period from 2021 to 2023 compared to 2018 to 2020. Now I'll dive into the Vision Zero Action Plan and talk about our progress on implementing the plan. This slide provides an overview of the current action plan structure. The plan consists of 20 actions divided into 4 categories. Nearly half of the actions focus on implementing engineering solutions. However, the plan also includes actions focused on enforcement, education, and evaluation. This slide highlights the action plan progress summary and the 2024 staff work plan items. You'll see that work is underway on all 20 actions contained within the action plan. The 9 actions slated for 2023 or 2024 initiation are on track to be completed or have already been completed. And work has been initiated on the remaining 11 items with later time frames, and all are anticipated to be completed by 2027. The 2024 staff work plan includes focusing on the following key actions: the speed limit setting framework, that ties to action 7, the pedestrian crossing treatment installation guidelines update, that ties to action 6, the signal timing practices update, which ties to action 1 and many sub-actions. The photo enforcement expansion ties to actions 11, 12, and 13, and the right turn slip lane signing and marking changes ties to action 1 and sub-actions as well. Green conflict markings on the HRN ties to action 1 and sub-actions, and the signal practices upgrades ties to actions 4 and 8. This is a big one right here. This is one that we are all very excited about. This slide highlights the recent Safe Streets and Roads for All grant award that the Transportation and Mobility Department in the City of Boulder received back in December 2023. We received notice that we received an award of over $23 million. And that is really a monumental amount of award for the city. And the grant will significantly accelerate implementation of key actions to eliminate severe crashes. Projects will be in design over the 2024-2025 timeframe, with implementation and construction phases occurring between 2026 through 2028. This grant illustrates how the core arterial network and the Vision Zero Action Plan implementation are intertwined. The CAN initiative lives on through the funding commitments we have secured through award of competitive external grants, such as Safe Streets and Roads for All. Segments of 2 CAN corridors, 30th Street and Arapahoe Avenue, were funded for implementation under SS4A, which secures a path forward and timeline via the grant-funded activities over the next 5 years. The projects funded with the SS4A grant are shown in the map on the slide, and I'd be happy to discuss those further and answer any questions you have at the conclusion of the presentation. This map shows where the CAN corridors and the high-risk network overlap. They're shown in blue on the map at right. The high-risk network was developed as a part of the action plan as a way to prioritize and organize the implementation of actions to achieve the greatest impact in the shortest amount of time. You'll note that while the HRN accounts for only 7% of all city streets and 35% of arterial streets, crash data indicates that nearly half of all fatal and serious injury crashes that are occurring are on this small part of the transportation system. The 3 priority CAN corridors are on the high-risk network, as well as other CAN corridors that are active in planning, design, or implementation. Managing risk and mitigating crashes on this small percentage of streets can have an outsized impact on reducing fatal and serious injury crashes in Boulder. For this reason, many of the actions within the action plan are structured to focus first on the HRN, then other streets across the transportation system. I'll talk about the photo enforcement expansion update now. Thanks to great council support, council adopted resolution 1342 on December 7th, 2023. And that resolution designated the corridors shown on the map at right as corridors where automated enforcement can occur. And in the first quarter of this year, staff has worked to install and activate 2 new red light running cameras, one at Canyon Boulevard and 15th Street, and one at 28th Street and J Road, as well as enable automated speed enforcement using existing red light running camera at Broadway and Pine Street. And staff are in the process of prioritizing additional corridors for deployment at this time. In terms of next steps, staff will continue to implement the Vision Zero Action Plan actions and keep TAB informed as necessary. And we're planning to present an overview of Vision Zero activities to City Council on Thursday this week. And we're preparing for SS4A grant-funded efforts that can begin once the intergovernmental agreement is executed. And I had 2 questions in the presentation, Tila, to help guide discussion tonight, but I'm open to however you'd like to facilitate the discussion and questions at this time.
Thank you, Devin. So that was kind of like 3 presentations at once. I think typically the most efficient way to do it is to have members of TAB ask clarifying questions first. So if there's something you didn't understand, needed more clarity on, and then if there were any overarching comments, reactions, feedback, to kind of do another round through, if that makes sense to people. So I'd prefer to try it that way. Let me see if I can see the people here. So does anyone have any clarifying questions? Mike, looks like you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, could you just go over this Safe Streets for All project? What I see that there's a map there with a bunch of different projects. So this is a grant that we won that's going to be used for those specific projects that are on the map. Is that right? Oh, you're muted. Devin is muted.
I can hear you, Devin.
There we go.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. I believe everybody should be seeing the slide again with the SS4A grant map. And that is correct, Mike, that these are the corridors and spot location projects that we put within the application that are funded by the grant. And the grant consists of 2 parts. The first is called a demonstration grant, and the second is an implementation grant. The demonstration grant will focus on right turn slip lanes and looking at how changes to right turn slip lanes impact safety and crash patterns at those locations. And then the implementation grant award is broken into really 3 main categories. One is called intersection treatments, the second is pedestrian crossing treatments, and the third is multimodal arterial treatments. And I'm happy to explain any of those locations in more detail if desired, but a lot of the intersection treatment locations are drawn directly out of the Vision Zero action plan as having an identified need for a project at that location.
Could you just describe what changes to slip lanes are going to be looked at?
Sure. So that is still in development, but the overarching idea is that we will change some locations from what's referred to as wide angle geometry to a tighter angle design. So changing how the slip lane how people enter into that slip lane and the geometry in it, and then changing the type of traffic control at the slip lane. So maybe from a yield sign to a stop sign, or from a stop sign to a traffic signal, and looking at how motorist and multimodal behavior, as well as crash patterns, are in each of those different configurations of the slip lane.
And just to follow up on that, Devin, we haven't really located those 8 intersections yet. Is that right? I asked you about that last month.
That is correct. Yes. Okay. And for further clarification, Mike, we said we would change 8 locations from a wide angle to a tighter angle, and 8 locations from a wide angle. I guess we actually did specify to traffic signal control. But yes, Tila, you are correct that those locations have not been determined yet. Those will be determined as we go through the grant scoping process.
Okay, so is it going to be 16 slip lane locations, or might some of them be combined?
I think it will likely end up being 16 locations.
Okay.
And keep in mind that an intersection might have multiple slip lanes, say 1 per each approach. So that
gotcha.
one intersection might have 4 slip lanes that may or may not all be included in the evaluation study.
Gotcha. Thank you. Trini, I see you've had your hand up. Go ahead. 1 second. There you go.
I just have to unmute. Yeah, well, thank you so much. This is really, really exciting for the city. I think this will save a lot of lives. And I know how hard you've been working on it, Devin, for so long. So thank you for all your work. And I wanted to make a suggestion on the automated traffic enforcement.
Okay, can we, we're on clarifying questions right this second. I just want to make sure, is that okay?
No, that's fine.
Okay. Mike, did you have any other clarifying questions before we move on to comments? And I'll come back to you first, Trini, for that.
So just on the slip lanes, there's no looking at having raised crosswalks and slip lanes.
I don't believe that was specifically called out in the grant application, but I think we looked recently, and I believe it was something like 70 or 75% of our slip lane locations in town already include a raised crossing.
Seems like that's right. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else questions wise, Mike?
No.
Okay, Darcy? Nope. Okay. I had a couple. Devin, on the, thank you for that clarification, Mike, because that was one of my questions. So I guess I'm just down to 2. That's pretty good. On the mode of travel involved in severe crashes, you had stand-up scooters, and then also scooter/motorcycle versus vehicle. Is that, are those 2 different kinds of scooters? Are we talking like moped-y kind of things? Moped-y kind of things. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. It's a kind of a moving landscape about what we call these things.
Right.
And then I one thing I thought would be helpful with those charts and comparisons, in particular, I loved the chart about the age range of people deemed at fault in the crash. But what I was left wondering was, how do those percentages compare to their representation demographically, either in the city residents or drivers? If we have that, I don't know, because they're not all city residents that are crashing. So I didn't know if that was data we could capture, but it would actually help contextualize, I think, where we, if this is an area of concern, of course, we should be concerned that an outsized number of our senior citizens are being injured in crashes, but it would be make a better case for paying attention to that if we can say, well, they're actually being struck and injured at double the rate that they're, out there on the streets. And that would be a really helpful way to kind of view some of that data. Finally, I said I had 2 and then I have 3. Do we have a goal for increasing auto enforcement? So you said your staff is evaluating new expansion for speed and red light running cameras. Is there a goal in mind? Have you heard any instructions from city council or otherwise about increasing those?
One way we're approaching it this year, Tila, is PD got within their budget for this year additional funding to hire one additional photo enforcement officer, as well as purchase one additional photo enforcement van. And then there
Okay.
was money as well to put out concrete pads in 6 locations. And the concrete pads are to serve the purpose of getting the photo radar van off of the roadway on an arterial on which parking is not allowed.
Right, right.
So I think the goal for us is to try to look across the city-owned corridors and work to get in those 6 pads this
Okay.
year to support the expanded enforcement.
Okay, great. I know that public opinion being what it is, you're probably barraged with, suggestions about where to be doing enforcement, of various types. And I didn't know if we have developed or have a way to sort of filter that or prioritize that or answer these members of the public, about what we're doing and how we're viewing that that process, because there's definitely a lot of interest in expanding automated enforcement citywide. So I gather it's just still kind of under development and thinking, but
It is under development, but it is a data-driven process, and we are looking at the speeds along those roadways, those automated enforcement corridors that have been designated. And we're looking at that in a few different ways, different time periods throughout the day, and the percent of speeders during different time periods of the day. And then we're also looking at any speeding related crashes. Really the new bill relies very heavily on that data-driven justification for conducting enforcement. So we want to make sure that we're in line with that requirement of the new bill.
Okay, thank you. Those are all the questions that I have. Now we'll go back to Trini for.
And Tila, if I may, I'll just direct your attention again to the prior Safe Streets Boulder report, the 4th edition report that we finished in 2022. We did that type of comparison about which you spoke. We did it for those drivers that were 65 and older.
Right, I remember that.
And that in that particular case, we showed that Boulder has about 12% of the population is 65 and older, but 16% of them were involved in these severe crashes.
Right.
So it was overrepresented for that age range.
Yeah, but it wasn't clear to me involved whether, because the new information to me on the slide tonight was found at fault. Like that's something I don't think we've looked at before.
Sure.
So involved is one thing, but being at fault is another. So that was kind of the purpose of that question. Go ahead, Trini.
Yeah, so thanks, Tila. So Devin, do we know how many of these crashes were speed related? Like, do we have that data available?
I might. So what I think we highlighted, Trini, in that earlier slide was we looked at not just 2023, but we expanded to the 3-year period 2021 through 2023. And when we looked at that period, we had seen that speeding related crashes had gone down. The percent of severe crashes related to speeding had gone down 14% compared to the prior 3-year period.
That's amazing. That's really good. And I guess my last bit of input, I know that this is data driven, but I would like to highly suggest to please put automated enforcement on Broadway around the Greenbrier and like between Table Mesa and Greenbrier, anywhere around there, and Baseline. So that would be incredibly helpful. And I'm sure it's going to come up in your numbers. I would be shocked if it wasn't there already, but
yeah, I mean that is a location that we'll look at. that is one that will require us to coordinate with CDOT,
Oh,
since it is
Even if
a
it
state
was-
highway on that
even if
segment.
it's on Table Mesa?
Not on Table Mesa, but Broadway, basically south of Baseline, is
So-
a state highway.
So the intersection itself belongs to both of you guys or just to CDOT?
One on Table
Um,
Mesa.
Yes.
Sorry, I might not have heard
Or-
you correctly, Trini. What was the specific segment you were suggesting we look
Yeah.
at?
So anywhere between, so I guess my question now is, so I understand that Broadway belongs to CDOT and the crossroads belong to the city of Boulder, right? So that light belongs to who? Like where they intersect?
The Broadway and Table Mesa signal, it is maintained by us, the city.
Ah, there. So that could be one. And Greenbrier.
Sorry, Broadway and Greenbrier area.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah,
those-
I think the challenge is they are still within a state highway corridor. So
Mhm.
even though we maintain the signal, we would still need CDOT approval.
is that a challenging process or like a lengthy process?
It's to be determined. CDOT is expected to hopefully release their guidelines for local agencies shortly. And it seems like it's very much in line with the process we're following for our own city corridors. So I don't expect it will be much more of a challenge for us to submit the state highway corridors.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Trini. Any other comments and feedback from Devin, for Devin?
So we're off the clarifying questions now?
Yes, yes, indeed.
Okay. Yeah, I think Boulder is a fine example compared to other cities in North America, and we still have a long way to go. I'm very pleased with some recent developments, like the protected bike lanes on Baseline near my house. And now this state is going to allow speed enforcement from red light cameras, so I hope that moves forward. But I just wanted to say that I think enforcement is only going to get us so far towards zero, and we need to change basically the physics as has been done in places like Baseline, so that you have sharper turns that really slow cars down and to the point where they're going to be encountering pedestrians and creating more raised crossings, which force cars to slow down. And in some cases, there could be speed bumps before a crosswalk where they're at higher speed, and narrowing lanes so that drivers don't feel so secure going so fast. I just hope we continue to move away from prioritizing moving vehicles quickly and think more about from the pedestrian point of view and the people outside of vehicles and their safety. So moving from not necessarily enforcement-based solutions, but designing our roads to make it much less likely that someone will be killed by a vehicle.
Thanks, Mike. Darcy, I see your hand up.
Yes, thanks. I second everything that Mike just said. It's really important. Devin, I just wanted to ask, I saw in the project list for potential projects for this plan that there's a traffic signal planned for the intersection of Table Mesa and Stanford, which is interesting to me because, that's so close to Broadway and so close to the signal to the library. And I'm curious about that process of sort of figuring out that a signal belongs there as opposed to an RFB or something else, because I know a lot of people do cross there, but I'm curious about putting a third signalized intersection there when in the close proximity of two others. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's something that will be evaluated closely, honestly, as we get into the project process, because that is a challenging intersection. And as you mentioned, it is close to some other adjacent signals that are serving pedestrian crossings, but there's the ditch in the middle of the road there, I guess. So that makes it more complicated to operate the signal. But there is some history there, I believe, even before my time at the city. I think we've had eyes on that particular intersection.
Yeah.
And I do think a signal was identified as the recommended traffic control device for that location.
I mean, it makes sense to some degree because it is a very problematic intersection. It's really difficult to navigate, and perhaps I hope that it wouldn't entail taking out the pedestrian signal to the library, because that's also very heavily used. But I understand that that's a really problematic place. So I'll be curious to see the process behind that. Maybe we can help get some community engagement to talk about what could really make that a better intersection, because I know it's really challenging.
Yeah, thank you. I think
Thanks.
those
Yeah.
will all be things that we consider in the actual project process.
Yeah, great. Well, and just one other comment about the high-risk network versus the core arterial network. I appreciate that, that there's a differentiation there, and hoping to see some distinctly different kind of engineering approaches on the high-risk network, where those really problematic places and sort of road segments are identified. I'm not sure if you've yet sort of decided how different interventions might be on the high-risk network versus just the regular core arterial network, or if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think if you refer back to the Vision Zero action plan, we went through that process of really trying to identify the most common crash types. And we had identified 7 of the most common crash types. And those were crashes that were occurring with a higher frequency along the high-risk network. And then the Vision Zero action plan walks through, and the actions are tied to implementing those specific countermeasures that address the most problematic crash types. So I hope that the action plan gives a sense of what types of elements would be implemented on not just the high-risk network, but also the core arterial network corridors.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I think looks like all of the comments. I just would like to say at the end here, thank you, Devin, for this work. I really am gratified to see the attention paid to the trouble spots. This is why we do the Safe Streets report and figure out, oh, it's happening on the arterials, and to have a very honest, reckoning that this is a kind of, place and situation. And then to turn that into plans, actions, and get funding to do our best to try to approach those problems head on. I really want to commend you and the rest of staff for your efforts on that front. So thank you very much. Work is continuing. And I am curious with the Vision Zero action plan, we implemented it. It was a really quick process to draw it up. And I'm hopeful that with the next, I guess we would probably revisit it at the next TMP update. But I didn't know, curious if Natalie has any idea. I'm not going to put you on the spot about when we're doing a TMP update, but is that the right timing, do you think, to have a fresh look at the Vision Zero action plan and maybe be a little bit more systematic than we were the last time around about really prioritizing those high impact, kind of good bang for our buck sort of projects?
So, well, we did the Vision Zero action plan update through 2022 2, and then that like, you know, updated version was published in early 2023. And that was really, I mean, if you go and look at the action plan, you can actually see how CAN has kind of been incorporated into it.
Yep.
And I think what our intention was with that last action plan update was for it to really be something we could accomplish, right? So certainly there's still a lot in there that we don't have the like fiscal resources to do immediately. But it's I would say probably a more realistic version of an action plan than we've had in a while.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
So that will continue. Really, that document will kind of live through 2027 is our hope. I think it's a 23-27 timeframe. And I think, you know, it's possible we'll do a transportation plan update before that. You know, our transportation master plan was adopted in 2019. It's getting to the point where I think we probably will need to update it here pretty soon. We really were waiting for the city-wide strategic plan to be completed, which it now is, and obviously council used that for their retreat last week. And I think as we kind of settle into that citywide strategic plan and get just our bearings as an organization around what these department plans are going to look like this year, then that will tee us up to hopefully do a transportation master or a transportation plan update. We're trying not to use the word master anymore. A transportation plan update in the next year or 2 would be my guess.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that. One last question is, with these SS4A grant, is there a window by which we need to accomplish all of the stuff that was in their application? And what is that sunset? What is that window?
Do you want me? You got it, Devin?
Yeah, I believe it's a 5-year time frame. I believe the clock starts when your IGA is executed, your intergovernmental agreement, which I think we're expecting that to be complete sometime mid to late this year.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you. Thanks for your work on this. Appreciate it. I think we can move on.
Thank you.
Terrific. Seeing no objection, we will move on now. Item 8 on the agenda is the core arterial network update.
And Melanie Sloan is here to present this item.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Good to see you. I'm going to share my screen. And then, Stephen, I think you will lead me into conversation tonight.
Yeah, so as Melanie shares her screen, just wanted to say a few words. For folks who haven't met me, name's Stephen Brijo. I'm the Transportation Planning Manager. And, you know, being newer to the city, been spending a lot of time getting up to speed on all the planning division's work. And, you know, while I've been impressed by really everything the team is working on, and you'll hear more about their efforts later tonight, I do really want to highlight the CAN as one of those initiatives that could be, you know, truly transformative for our city. It's strategic, it's thoughtful, really a great way to ensure we're making progress towards the Vision Zero and other multimodal goals by really rethinking how we work on our arterials. And so, you know, as Devin said, that's where a lot of the crashes are happening. So really just wanted to applaud the team for their creativity and rethinking how we deliver our work to build out on the CAN in the next couple of years. So with that, I'll kick it over to our CAN program manager, Melanie Sloan.
Thank you, Stephen. So good evening, TAB Chair. My name is Melanie Sloan, for the record, Principal Project Manager for the city's Transportation and Mobility Department. As Stephen said, and you see on your agenda, I'm providing the update on the Core Arterial Network, or CAN initiative. And then I've got a bit of a request for you at the end. So before I begin, I just want to provide an overview of what you'll hear tonight. I will do a little bit of a background on the CAN, link it to the Vision Zero Action Plan and High Risk Network, as you've heard a bit about to now, provide updates on our funding and engagement strategy, and then a bit more detail on the work plan progress, including priority corridors, and a look at a couple of current and future projects, and then we'll wrap up with some next steps. So a lot of these maps look familiar to you. The CAN is directly linked to the Vision Zero Action Plan, like conversation was just highlighting and diving into. And we heard that that plan is a 5-year action plan to respond to the finding of the city's Vision Zero Safe Streets report. That's at 67% of those crashes resulting in serious injury or fatality occurring on our arterials. And those are our busiest streets. And we heard from Devin that data in 2023 shows again, severe crashes continue to be concentrated on these. And those consistent findings is what led City Council in partnership with this board to elevate the work on the CAN as one of its top 10 priorities. And like the Vision Zero action plan, the CAN is a long-term commitment. You heard Stephen alluding to it, you heard Devin speaking to it, and I'm just here to affirm the team is committed to the work you'll see here and here in a bit more detail. So this map shows the CAN corridors. There's 13 of them. Those are all shown in blue. The 3 CAN corridors identified as priority corridors are highlighted in yellow in this map. And those priority corridors were chosen for their value to enhance the north-south as well as east-west multimodal connections in each of their part of the city, to couple improvements with planned paving where possible, and to advance the Vision Zero action plan. So again, it's a very connected system. The priority corridors in order are Baseline Road from 30th Street to Foothills Parkway, Iris Avenue from 28th Street to Broadway, and Folsom Street from Pine Street to Colorado Avenue. And we also just discussed the interplay of the Vision Zero action plan's high-risk network with the CAN. As you can see on this map, where that overlap occurs is shown in blue. And so we heard from Devin that high-risk network is that network of streets that have the most contextual factors associated with fatal and serious injury crashes. And I want to pause here because I know some of the conversation was around the difference in how the Vision Zero action plan and high-risk network will be treated and the CAN will be treated. And we see there's an overlap. But the thing I also want to highlight that I think is important is that it captures both where crashes are occurring, but also where they're likely to occur. And so that's that proactive approach that that our latest Vision Zero action plan is leaning into. And I think that proactive and human-centered approach is really important. As you heard from Devin, measured by crashes per vehicle miles traveled, our high-risk network has 5 times more risk, right? And so again, we focus on these, a small percentage of streets, we can have that big impact on reducing fatal and serious injury crashes in our community. So just wanted to make that connection. Since the start of the CAN back in 2022, you've heard a bit about our funding. We received $15.6 million in funding. A lot of that's come through external grant pursuits, including the Denver Regional Council of Governments Transportation Improvement Program, the Colorado Department of Transportation Alternatives Program, and then that really wonderful Safe Streets and Roads for All grant that we also received in 2023. And as you heard, these funds will implement specific actions from the city's Vision Zero action plan, and many do fall along the CAN corridor. And I'll highlight a few of those a bit later. Just to be clear, though, additional funds will be needed to implement all CAN corridor recommendations, and staff is committed to implementing the CAN through our funding strategy also. And that will happen through future departmental budget cycle requests, as well as seeking additional external grant funding opportunities to continue to advance this important initiative. Engagement for the CAN is guided by the city's engagement strategic framework. That provides guidance on inclusive engagement that gives the community a meaningful voice. The framework, though, doesn't dictate engagement take a long time, and CAN corridor engagement doesn't. CAN projects have and will be appropriately scaled, tailored to the context of each CAN corridor. It will build off of previous community conversations, extend our connections through our partners, both internal and external to the city, offer a mix of opportunities for effective and welcoming input as well. And data collection happens concurrent to engagement, and combined, they define the existing conditions, those issues and solutions that we need, and it does so in an accelerated way. So as we look at this work plan progress map, I want you to take away that a lot is happening on the CAN, and that work keeps us on track for this initiative. We have 18 projects on 9 of the 13 CAN corridors, which are shown in pink on this map. They have funding, they're active in planning, design, or construction. It advances that Vision Zero action plan, and specifically the approach of implementing and improving engineering solutions to reduce fatal and serious injury crashes, and specifically Action 3 of the plan, which is to implement these projects along the high-risk network and CAN corridors. The work ranges from preliminary design to construction of proven safety countermeasures, things that will reduce and will prevent these severe injury crashes and fatalities. Those include things like multi-use paths, sidewalk level bike lanes, and protected intersections, among other improvements. And from here, I'd like to spend a bit of time focusing on our 3 priority corridors, Baseline, Iris, and Folsom in order. The first priority corridor is Baseline Road from 30th Street to Foothills Parkway. It's being implemented in 2 phases. Phase 1 used local dollars and leveraged planned paving to gain the safety benefits of strategic improvements, while the city awaited distribution of grant funds, which we received at the beginning of this year. Changes made with paving were informed by what we had heard from the community and targeted themes that could provide the greatest safety benefit, such as reducing vehicle speeds. We narrowed lanes as an example I heard mentioned a bit earlier. That happened on Baseline, making intersections safer and more comfortable to travel through, and providing more separation between people biking and driving. And after 12 months of design and community engagement, we implemented those changes in winter of 2023. That work included the first use of concrete tall curbs in the United States. And that's something we're really proud of. And I think that's something that we'd like to see more of. So the phase 1 approach, it's a model for future priority corridor projects. Because it accelerates project design to implementation while also staying true to our engagement strategy. And so phase 2 engagement will begin the middle of this month with walking and biking tours, and it will build off of those themes we heard from the public in phase 1 and focus on more comprehensive implementation of phase 1 improvements, such as completing the bike lane and intersection protection provided with paving in phase 1, also additional pedestrian and protected intersection enhancements and transit efficiency improvements. And we heard in public comment some experience on Baseline today. And I think as we move into phase 2, building that and completing these improvements will be really helpful to our traveling public. Phasing this project also allows us to learn and make tweaks as we start to develop our phase 2. What we did in phase 1 really tells us a lot. So as I mentioned, we received grant funds. Engagement will begin this month, conceptual design by summer, including an open house to bring that to the public. And then winter will see final design and construction will start next year. The second priority corridor is Iris Avenue. That's from Broadway to 28th Street. And this is an important east-west corridor that also provides connections regionally to travel within Boulder and communities along the Diagonal Highway. For example, the Boulder County, Colorado Department of Transportation and RTD collaborative project on the Diagonal Highway, the CO119 Safety, Mobility, and Bikeway project. That's going to bring regional multimodal transportation improvements, including bus rapid transit and off-street multi-use paths, to the eastern edge of the Iris Avenue priority corridor. That project is going to begin in 2024 and will be completed in spring of 2027. So last year, we focused on data collection and community engagement. We hosted 27 activities, reached over 1,600 people, received 2,100 comments. And we also collected data and completed analysis concurrent with that so we could expedite that phase of work. The engagement themes, data collection, analysis helped us understand existing conditions on Iris and also helped identify issues and opportunities for improvement. And that all informed design, which began this year. The community will be asked to provide their feedback on conceptual designs and key trade-offs that may be needed to achieve CAN and project goals beginning later this month through in-person and online open houses and additional engagement events being planned through early summer. Following engagement, staff will develop a design recommendation, and that recommendation will be brought to this board as well as the planning board and city council through a community and environmental assessment process, or CEAP. The CEAP is a formal review of the project conceptual designs. It helps select a recommendation for construction that balances those community goals and our adopted plans, like our Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan and our Transportation Master Plan. So you and planning board will be asked to make a recommendation on the CEAP to city council for them to take action on the recommended design. And these public hearings are slated for later this summer. The third priority corridor is Folsom Street from Pine Street to Colorado Avenue. Folsom Street is an important corridor in the city. On this map, north is oriented to your right and south to the left. The project is between previously implemented protected bicycle lanes on Folsom Street from Belmont Road to Pine Street and planned improvements on Colorado Avenue from Regent to Folsom Street. On an average day, though, over 17,000 people are driving, 4,000 people are walking, 1,600 people are biking, and over 1,100 people are using transit on this stretch of Folsom. We also know many who live along the corridor are historically underserved. 23% are individuals of color, 40% live in low-income households, 15% are in households with no access to a motor vehicle. So the project can provide a safer, more comfortable, and more connected walkable, bikeable, and transit connection for people to access to opportunity as well as for short trips. So conceptual design and community engagement begins in early 2025 when we receive grant funds. And depending on project sequencing, paving may also be scheduled. Let's see. I want to highlight for you the updated work plan schedule and detailed list of ongoing and active implementation work and timelines on CAN corridors. Those are both found in your memo, but I want to highlight a few projects here that are in planning and design this year. The first is 30th Street, Complete Street Preliminary Design Project that's focused between Arapahoe Avenue and the Diagonal Highway. This is an important corridor in our city. It's also on the high-risk network and also on the regional high injury network. So it's really important to focus on this project. The conceptual design and community engagement will begin this month with the community partner-led youth walk. And the project will also use the CEAP process with public hearings with this board, planning board, and city council anticipated to take place in 2025. This is one of those projects that the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant will fund. It will fund final design and implementation of improvements recommended through the project and the Vision Zero action plan. And those improvements will be focused from Pearl Street to the Diagonal Highway. The second project I'd like to highlight in planning and design this year is the 30th Street and Arapahoe Avenue intersection preliminary design. This one's important. It's at the nexus of two CAN corridors, 30th Street and Arapahoe Avenue, but it's also a top 10 crash location in the city. So it really is warranting immediate attention. We will begin preliminary design later this year, and it will continue into 2025. And that Safe Streets and Roads for All grant provides funding for both final design and implementation, which is anticipated to begin in winter of 2026. The last project I want to highlight in planning and design this year is the East Arapahoe Avenue preliminary design project. That's from 28th Street to 64th Street. This is also a top crash corridor, and preliminary design actually began back in 2022 and will be completing in the next few months, but then it'll be going right into final design. And following that work, a section from 28th Street to 33rd Street will be implemented from funding for that Safe Streets and Road for All project. As I mentioned, there are many other projects. I do refer you to the memo for all that detail, but wanted to highlight those because I think they show progress on the CAN. They show progress on the CAN continues from engagement to design to implementation when funding is secured. And I think another project that's doing that is the Iris Avenue Priority Corridor project, which had public engagement last year and is now coming forward with conceptual design at an in-person and online open house starting on April 27th. And I will say there is also an opportunity for this board to help us with our engagement. And that's to spread the word on CAN engagement through your networks to help us boost participation in CAN projects. It's also important for your presence to come and support our engagement. And then there's also so much going on. We really encourage you to sign up for 2 newsletters. We have our transportation and mobility newsletter. The link can be found at the bottom of the transportation mobility webpage. It comes out monthly. It provides important updates on all of our department's work. And so I also encourage you to sign up for the Iris Avenue project newsletter. That's found at the Iris Avenue Priority Corridor project webpage. That also comes out monthly, but provides up-to-date information specific to this priority corridor, such as engagement events that we will be hosting over the next few months. And the last thing I ask, of course, is for your feedback and any questions on this CAN update.
Thank you, Melanie.
You're welcome.
That's a lot of work going on.
Indeed it is.
Okay, any members of TAB have any feedback, questions, comments? Mike, go ahead.
I have a few clarifying questions on 30th Street because in the PDF as part of our packet, it included something that looks really good that I don't think you mentioned, that there will begin construction in April this month of protected bike lanes on 30th between Arapahoe and Colorado. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely, Mike. I'm happy to. There is a lot of work going on CAN corridors. And so one of the projects that's going into construction is extending the sidewalk level bike lanes that were implemented at the 30th and Colorado intersection and were completed last year. That will continue north up to the Arapahoe Avenue intersection, just shy of it. We'll also be widening sidewalks and making some other improvements. So that's a project going into construction that I didn't highlight. And it's a really great example of how 30th Street is both an important CAN corridor and being built out and demonstrating that progress of planning, design, implementation when funding secured. I mentioned the 30th and Colorado protected intersection and bike lanes and underpasses. That was all completed last year. And we are building up to Arapahoe Avenue, as we just discussed. We'll be starting planning and design to continue that south towards baseline. We have funding to do planning and design all the way to baseline and implementation to Aurora. And then you heard the 30th and Arapahoe intersection will start preliminary design later this year. And we already have those safe streets and roads for all grant funds to final design and get that into implementation. And we'll be doing that corridor study that all the way up to the northern terminus of 30th Street. So I feel really proud of the work. As Stephen was saying, there's a lot happening and there's a lot of focus and coordinated effort. And 30th Street is a great example of how we will have a very different experience and a much safer and connected corridor once all of these efforts move forward.
And related, I think you were talking about 30th when you mentioned something between Pearl Street and Foothills. Did you mean Valmont? That's the end of 30th Street.
Yeah, did I say Foothills? I apologize if I did. I
Okay.
confused everyone. I meant to say Valmont and well, the 30th Street study, the 30th Street preliminary design project goes from Arapahoe to Diagonal Highway. And so that's where we'll be kicking off engagement and preliminary design.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
Just to congratulate Melanie and thank her for all this work. I mean, I've been part of a little bit of the community engagement piece, and it was really fun to see everybody just be excited about having these changes come to their neighborhood.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that we've seen some really good work on Baseline that's put some wind in our sails. And I appreciate the praise, Trini, but honestly, I wish it was as easy as one person, but it really does take a team. And there are many people on the call here that I want to point to. You know, we have Daniel Sheeter and Eric Amador and John McFarlane, Lindsay Mers, and others who have been rolling up their sleeves and really leaning into the work it takes to make this change, make it thoughtfully and in an expedited way. So
And I
it's
don't
been
want to take away from anybody. I'm just saying you're the one presenting. I just
yeah.
want to praise you for that. But no, absolutely. And I'm honored to be working with all of you guys. You guys really are an amazing team.
Thank you, Trini.
Thank you. Mike, you have your hand up again.
Yeah, I just had a clarifying question because there was some people had noted that the city council's dashboard where there are updates on CAN and other projects up until March on Iris, it had said that the implementation was to begin on April 1st, 2024, and it had other implementation dates for Baseline and Folsom, and recently that was changed so that those implementation dates don't appear. And at the same time, the progress on the CAN has increased from 55% to 64%, which I guess I can understand given everything you're telling us about all these other projects that I'm not necessarily aware of. But do you have anything? I know you guys have been doing a lot of community feedback on Iris, and there's been concerns about what you might do from some neighbors, but I do hope that we'll be moving forward with protected bike lanes as back in 2 years ago when CAN was first put forward at City Council by Rachel Friend and Matt Benjamin. They specifically mentioned protected bike lanes on Iris, and so I don't know if you have anything to say about like the timeline for Iris slipping. I know you guys are doing a lot of other work as well, but do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah,
I'm happy.
Yeah, Natalie, please
Yeah,
do.
I'm happy to jump
And I
in.
can fill in anything else.
Sure. So just kind of in respect to the dashboard question, I think we did make some updates to that recently. I think acknowledging that their implementation is kind of a bit of a vague term, right? So we are really in the middle of project development, and obviously the SEEP is coming on Iris, and that will be coming to, as Melanie said, that will be coming to TAB and Council later in the summer. And from there, it would be a matter of identified funding to go to construction. And so I think the need to kind of adjust how we're talking about the project in the dashboard, that's kind of why we did that. And then as far as the other question around what design options we'll be bringing forward and kind of council's or part of council's understanding with this WinCAN initiative that was brought forward through the retreat back in 2022. We have been, listening to community and looking at various design options, and so we can confidently say we're bringing a protected bike lane option forward, or options that include protected bike lanes forward. And that's based on what we've heard from community and our analysis to date. What that exactly looks like, the exact layout of the protected bike lanes, and what the full corridor like is going to continue to be under development, really based on what we hear from community and what we hear from TAB Council in the coming months and through the SEEP process, through the analysis. So there will definitely be that option, in in spirit of what was requested by council back in 2022.
Great, glad to hear that.
Natalie, do you mean by that by the end of the month, we're going to see design options, but there won't be a preferred staff proposal?
That's correct.
That's correct.
There will
Okay.
be design options brought forward at the open house later this month.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other
Valerie-
questions?
I was just going to make sure, Valerie, Melanie, did I miss anything?
No,
Thumbs up
that-
from Valerie.
that was great, Natalie. Thank you.
Any other feedback, comments, questions? Okay, I just wanted to second the commendations about how hard I saw staff working on the outreach and the public engagement. I remember I went to a couple of the on the street kind of meetings, and one day I was like, there's no one's gonna be here because we had just had like 2 feet of snow, and sure enough, Erica's out there with 20 members of the public. It was a sunny day at least, but it's hard to overstate how thorough at least staff has tried to be, how we're constantly berated, not really me, but you guys, by neighbors who just heard about this thing and I didn't get a postcard and I didn't see the website. It is really hard to imagine any more flexible, more sort of robust engagement efforts than what I saw in particular on Iris. And I just wanted to comment on that. That being said, we will talk briefly about what's coming up at the TAB retreat. But one thing I'm going to advance is I think TAB can and should play a better role in helping to get the word out and helping really to explain the why behind these kinds of projects and to sort of be a better buffer and explainer of what's going on. And I think actually with this board that you have assembled with you right now, this is the biggest concentration of advocates I have ever seen on TAB. You might actually have hit a sweet spot this year because we are lacking, the sort of general purpose, want to get a meddling in government kind of thing, but we've got 5 advocates here. And we might be able to actually amplify your voice in the right way this year. That's what I'm hoping for. But thank you for all of you who've done. Really appreciate that. And I see Darcy's hand up.
Yeah, to speak to that specifically, I wanted to ask that the Iris Avenue Project website gets updated with the events happening this month. You said that the middle of this month, these things are happening, and I haven't heard anything about walks coming up or anything, and I see that it's still the December and before walks on the Iris website. So if you can get all the April and beyond projects up there, we'll absolutely get the word out. I just want to recommend that generally that we have a good month notice before engagement opportunities happen so we can really get the word out. I've heard from a lot of people that, yeah, this kind of, last minute, oh, I just heard about this kind of thing. I mean, I understand that these things take time, of course, and that you have to, find venues and have the materials ready. But it is really important to have lots of notice. And that was one thing I really enjoyed with the Iris business outreach project that was in one of the pictures that you showed. There was plenty of time to organize that and to get people there. And that's really, really important for all of us out there working in communities to make sure that people really feel like they can be included. And that requires a good amount of notice. So yeah, just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thanks, Darcy. Okay, I think we can wrap up this item then.
Thank you all.
Thanks very much, Melanie. Everybody else on the call who's been here. I saw Erica on here earlier. She's dropped off, it looks like, but yeah, nice work. We look forward to seeing more and helping row this boat. Okay, now we are at matters. Item 9 on the agenda, matters from staff. We'll start with an update on the shared micromobility program.
And Allison is here with us to present this.
Hi, folks. Let me share my screen really quick. All right, can folks see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Good evening, tab members. I'm Allison Moore Farrell, Senior Transportation Planner with Transportation and Mobility. Today, I'll be sharing with you an update on the city's shared micromobility program. A key action in our Transportation Master Plan is to expand access to shared electric micromobility. We work with B-Cycle to provide shared e-bikes and Lime to provide shared e-scooters. Micromobility refers to ways of getting around for smaller scale travel, like scooters, skateboards, and bikes. Shared services and connected technology provide more travel choices for more people. Shared micromobility offers yet another multimodal transportation choice to advance our goals around reduced vehicle miles traveled and greenhouse gas emissions, and often serves as first and last mile solutions to connected transit. They help reduce single occupancy trips by filling gaps in our transportation network, such as the distance between bus stops and homes, office, and schools. So let's start a little bit with the history in Boulder. Back in 2011, the city worked with B-Cycle to bring shared bikes to Boulder. Back then, it was subsidized by the city. As the performance of the system proved strong, we transitioned to a privatized model in 2021, where B-Cycle is allowed to operate in the city under a user agreement and pays per trip fees to the city that we in turn invest back into infrastructure and programming, things like wayfinding signage and design changes. Lime shared e-scooters first operated under a pilot program starting in 2021, in which they were allowed to operate east of 28th Street. After a successful one-year pilot, the city expanded the operational area for Lime citywide in fall 2023. The Lime system for e-scooters is a dockless model with geofencing technology regulating use and parking in high activity areas. As I mentioned, B-Cycle began operating in Boulder in 2011. They partnered with the city for many years to meet transportation goals. In 2021, B-Cycle finished their transition to a fully electric fleet. As of 2024, B-Cycle has over 300 bicycles in operation in Boulder and over 50 docking stations. Ridership significantly increased in 2021 for B-Cycle and in every year since. In fact, every month since 2019 has broken records year to year. This is primarily due to B-Cycle electrification efforts, as well as every CU student receiving a B-Cycle membership through their student fees, which also began in 2021. Though the student membership accounts for a significant increase, there is still an increase in ridership outside of student memberships year over year. So in a city of just over 100,000 residents, we had over 700,000 shared e-bike trips last year, which is pretty impressive. And moving on to shared micromobility with Lime e-scooters. As mentioned earlier, the city conducted a one-year pilot shared e-scooter program using Lime as the e-scooter provider. After conducting an evaluation and report, boards and commissions, as well as city council, supported citywide expansion of the shared e-scooter program. The geographic area of e-scooter access increased threefold, and the number of e-scooters reflected that expansion, expanding from a cap of 300 e-scooters to a cap of 900 over the period of a month. Data for our shared micromobility programs is shared through a third-party provider. DRCOG, the Denver Regional Council of Governments, contracts this third-party provider for all local cities who have micromobility providers. This helps us understand the metrics we are tracking, how they can align with our city goals, and how we can use them to iterate on this program in the future. Seen above is utilization data from both the e-scooter pilot program and the citywide expansion. Again, want to highlight these ridership numbers. Over the past 7 months, over 300,000 trips were taken on e-scooters. So let's walk more in depth about what occurred with this e-scooter citywide expansion, outside of just the fleet size increase. With the program expansion came expanded equity zones and increased use of technology to manage operations and parking. Boulder's equity zones for e-scooters require 15% of the fleet to remain in identified equity zones to allow for better access for residents, often in areas that have low car ownership neighborhoods. Some of the technical tools in this toolkit are virtual in-app guides and restrictions. These include no-go zones, which are locations where scooters cannot be used. You cannot ride in that zone. Your vehicle will safely stop and locking will be disabled. You have to walk the scooter out of that zone to resume riding. For example, Pearl Street Mall on the Bricks, cemeteries, ball fields, and parts of CU campus are no-go zones. Then we have slow zones, which are locations where scooters have a max speed of 10 miles per hour. Examples of these are 13th Street on University Hill and the streets downtown that intersect Pearl Street Mall. We also have no parking zones, which is where users are not allowed to park their e-scooter. You would be fined if you were to park here. We have mandatory parking zones, which are locations where users are required to park e-scooters in designated areas that are mandatory parking corrals or lime groves, which is you have to park in that area or again, you will be fined. So we use technology to provide these restrictions virtually and manage this program. This map shows the mandatory parking zone and mandatory parking corrals or lime groves in the University Hill Commercial District and residential neighborhood. Recently, in response to ridership and end-trip parking data, as well as community input, city staff made changes to the University Hill mandatory parking zone. In March 2024, the zone expanded from the commercial district to include a portion of the residential neighborhood where large amounts of ridership and parking was occurring. The primary aim here was to manage parking in lime groves so that riders were not parking scooters on lawns, sidewalks, or public right-of-way. Given that these lime groves are below the curb near intersections, they also act as a safety feature, daylighting intersections without removing vehicle parking. Iterations like this are beneficial and also take a great deal of staff effort, including identifying appropriate locations that don't interfere with regular city functions like maintenance and snow removal, emergency operations in a physically constrained neighborhood like University Hill. We continue to aim to make data-driven decisions that are informed by community input. City staff and Lime staff are closely monitoring these iterations. Thus far, we've seen good compliance with this new expanded zone. The lime groves in downtown Boulder were implemented last fall. All are above the curb in strategically placed locations. City staff and Lime staff considered likely origin and destinations of e-scooter trips, including activity centers and the downtown transit station. We've seen good compliance in these locations, and we have regular conversations with the Downtown Boulder Partnership regarding any issues that their members see. Also in downtown Boulder, the team focused on creating virtual low-speed zones where e-scooters reduce in speed to 10 miles per hour, typically in higher pedestrian usage areas. The technology and insight that I highlighted helped staff manage the expansion in fall 2023. Citywide expansion in August of last year unlocked many destinations that were not reachable in the pilot that had limited operations to areas east of 28th Street. CU Boulder also expanded access to campus after seeing the benefit of scooters for reducing private vehicle and Uber and Lyft trips as well as parking demand. As shown in this animation, citywide expansion made a significant impact on overall ridership. During the 2 time points, 1 year apart in the pilot phase, ridership was growing modestly. Then after citywide expansion, we saw an exponential increase. Here we see that significant increase that I mentioned. Shared e-scooter trips citywide shows the number of trips taken since the beginning of the program in August 2021. Over 525,000 shared e-scooter trips have been taken since August 2021. The usage rates are considerably lower during the colder winter months, and higher usage is commensurate with nicer weather and CU Boulder's school schedule. Usage was highest in September and October 2023 and has since lowered. The highest ridership month by far was in October 2023 with almost 90,000 rides. While this amount of usage is beneficial to see from a first mile connectivity perspective and expanding multimodal options in our community, some community members have voiced concerns about the presence of scooters disrupting aesthetic preferences, misparked e-scooters blocking sidewalks and curb ramps, poor rider behavior, and overcrowded parking crowds and managed parking zones. Staff recognized there would be a need to iterate and adjust the program after expansion and upon hearing from the community and reviewing the usage data. As citywide expansion has progressed, staff have been monitoring shared e-scooter operations and working closely with Lime to adjust as issues have arisen. Some of the adjustments to date include reducing the maximum e-scooter speed in the downtown area from 12 miles per hour to 10 miles per hour. The downtown slow zone is bound by Walnut Street, 11th Street, Spruce Street, and 15th Street. We've expanded the downtown mandatory parking zone to include the Civic Center area. We've adjusted geofencing in the downtown area to address e-scooter usage around and approaching the Pearl Street Mall non-operational zone. And like I mentioned earlier, we've expanded the University Hill mandatory parking zone and mandatory e-scooter parking corrals due to high usage and dense parking of e-scooters in the area. So here's some of the in-app messaging that folks using the app will see in some of these areas that I mentioned, like the slow zone on our left here identifies that your scooter is slowing down and you must go 10 miles per hour here. There's the mandatory parking zone identifying that you need to park in these parking corrals when you're in this zone. And on the right, we have a warning message and then a fine if people do not park in a mandatory parking zone. In a mandatory parking corral when they're in a mandatory parking zone. So again, really utilizing this in-app messaging to help guide the program. I know I've shared some impressive numbers and the efforts completed by Lime staff and city staff. However, I also want to highlight that this is a relatively new program that is in need and will continue to be in need of monitoring and iterations. I want to share community feedback, both positive and negative, as well as some lessons we've learned thus far. So some community feedback themes we've had shared with us is that most folks agree with shared micromobility as a policy and a way to meet city goals. We've heard that parking on sidewalks has been a challenge, that following some rules of the road in some neighborhoods has been a challenge. Some recent lessons learned is that communication is really key, both focused communication on scooter users, but also communications for the whole community, riders and non-riders, so folks are seeing the same information, the same rule of the road, really understanding how this program is meant to function. And we're also learning that data-driven decisions allow us to understand more clearly what issues folks share with us. This back-end dashboard that I mentioned earlier from Dr. Cog allows us to be both proactive and reactive with program iterations. And lastly, we need to allocate and accommodate the need for new infrastructure for a new mode. This is, the past few years is the first time that Boulder has had a shared e-scooter program. So it's really important to understand what is needed to accommodate and make a program like this successful. So over the years of the micromobility program, we've had safety messaging and education as a key part of this. We have information on which wheels go where on our webpage. And like I mentioned, Lime also conducts in-app messaging demonstrating how to use the scooter, where to park the scooter if you're in certain zones, and how to act in those zones. In addition to messaging through typical city channels, staff conducted an education and courtesy campaign in fall 2023. In concert with the citywide expansion, the city implemented this safety campaign that focused on shared e-scooter usage and parking. This campaign included social and print media like lawn signs that encouraged shared users of paths, rules of the road for micromobility, where to park, and how to ride. This campaign will continue and expand location and content-wise in spring 2024 as the weather warms and ridership increases. This will include a broader reach, including more focus on the downtown area, and include both shared e-scooters and shared e-bikes. I'd like to touch briefly on the equity piece of our shared micromobility program. From the onset, equitable approaches to shared micromobility have been a priority for the City of Boulder. Lime and B-Cycle both offer multiple equity-focused programs that center on income-qualified users. B-Cycle also partners with the Boulder Library to offer the Book a Bike program, which allows folks to check out B-Cycle bikes for 7 days at a time with their library card at the main library. And all Boulder Housing Partner residents receive free Boulder B-Cycle access. Lime is also required to have a certain percentage of their fleet available within equity-focused areas shown in blue. While the citywide e-scooter expansion is still relatively new, we continue to monitor program performance so we can iterate and make data-driven decisions that are informed by community insights and input. With shared micromobility, we're fortunate to have a fantastic amount of data provided by B-Cycle and Lime that helps inform improvements and adjustments. This technology is flexible and allows us to be nimble. We continue to collect community feedback so we can have a balanced program that aims to meet our community's goals and benefiting the community. An upcoming step is expanding our equity program offerings so this new mode can be a benefit to more folks. We continue to partner with B-Cycle and Lime to build upon these programs so they can benefit Boulder. And with that, I've wrapped up our update on the Shared Micromobility Program, and I'd love to hear if you all have any questions and any other information that we can provide on the program.
Thank you, Allison. Is there a project page for this on City of Boulder's website?
There is. I am happy to send that out, or I can.
Oh, I can find it. I just didn't want to.
Yes, there is.
I was following along while you were doing this. I thought that was an excellent presentation. And so a suggestion that comes to mind is if you could, it's too bad we don't, maybe we do now, record video as well and save it, but just even having your audio and flipping through these slides as a presentation available on that city webpage, I think would be really great, because you covered several questions that I have fielded in the last couple of months about this that I was like, sure. It was really informative and really quick, really made sense. I think right there was a really great chunk of explaining where we're at, how we got here. I thought it was fantastic. And if there was a way to just make it available to the public so that, you know, those who are not here right now can hear it, I would recommend that.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's terrific feedback. Thank you. We're always trying to figure out on the webpage how to make it concise and informative. So,
Sure.
So we'll work on that and work on fleshing through our FAQs on the webpage too, to see if there's any other helpful information there.
Yeah, really, really great. One of the questions that I fielded recently was someone in Uni Hill, and he was like, why did this lime grove just show up in front of my house? And we talked about where it was. I'm like, well, probably helping with daylighting. And he, doubted that there was enough ridership. And I'm like, I'm sure that there's data back there. And so that was a really great explainer. And it leads me to a question. We have also received some emails from other people. I'm thinking in particular of someone in Goss Grove who we're, in fairly frequent contact with, and he was asking for a lime grove.
Mm-hmm.
But he's asking us, is that the right way to do it? Does that get passed on to Lime? Is there, a process by which sort of public interest and requests for a lime grove or a restricted parking area gets considered or implemented? Or is it just data driven based on what the city and Lime decide is appropriate?
Yeah, it's a great question, Tila, and it is primarily data driven. And the platform that I mentioned from DRCOG is actually a public dashboard.
Okay.
So you can go ahead and look at it as well, and I'll make sure it's linked on our webpage. So it's really informative, and it allows the public to see as well where a lot of usage is happening. And that's really where we start to look at where the usage is, where folks are parking, and really understanding kind of those high impact areas. And that's really what we're highlighting first. And then we also hear from community members. So I think it's a good point, and we can figure out a way to put on the webpage of, if you have, if you'd like a lime grove or anything like this, you can reach out to city staff. It doesn't mean we can put a lime grove on every corner, because a piece of that is when you have a mandatory parking corral, it needs to be in a mandatory parking zone. So it's a managed zone. And this system wouldn't function as a dockless system if the entire city was a mandatory parking zone, right?
Okay.
And part of having a dockless system that's in concert with the B-Cycle dock system is that it can reach more folks. So the intention is not to have the entire city be a mandatory parking zone. And so we certainly are listening to folks when they say, we'd like to figure out managed parking here. Other options that Lime has introduced in some areas, and we're actually looking at for Goss Grove, is some parking zones that are recommended. So they're not mandatory, but they're recommended. So when you're trying to park your scooter and you see on your app, it's also a parking symbol that says, this is a recommended parking area. So it's encouraging folks. And we're also looking at ways to incentivize folks.
I'm like, what if you could earn $1 if you just,
and that's
right.
That's been a thought process. So you know where I'm heading with that. So we're looking if there's any, financial incentives or any incentives we can do through the app to park in these preferred parking areas without creating too large of a mandatory parking zone that the program has kind of issues functioning that way. So so in short, we want folks to reach out to us if they have questions, suggestions, anything like that. And I'll make sure on our webpage that we can kind of create a space for that.
Great, thank
That
you.
would be a
Appreciate
solution
that.
for that.
Okay. Anyone else on tab have any feedback, questions on this item? I see no. Sounds good. You were so informative. That's all the questions we have.
Terrific. Well, you have my contact information if there's any follow-up questions. And thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, next, an update on the PMP, the Pavement Management Program on Moorhead and mobility enhancements there. Is that going to be
Daniel? Daniel's here with us. Yeah, thanks, Daniel.
Yeah. Good evening, tab members. My name is Daniel Sheeter, Principal Transportation Planner in the Planning Division. I'm here tonight just with a quick update on the Moorhead project. As a refresher for everyone and also for the new tab members, the Moorhead Mobility Enhancements Project is being coordinated with repaving as a cost-effective and efficient way to make the streets safer for all that use the corridor. And I want to share just a couple bullet points here on the final project elements and what the final design was based on, as well as an update on implementation and kind of next steps and timeline for the build out of the project. So the final project elements include 3 splitter islands, 3 speed cushions, and a buffered southbound bike lane, as well as no parking zone at intersections to improve visibility, and a new mid-block crossing at the south end near Table Mesa. We've also incorporated improved bike connections to the Skunk Creek underpass at the north end near 27th Way. The final design was based on data collected along the corridor, citywide design and construction standards, and what we heard from the community. The final layout limited traffic calming to 6 locations to prioritize reducing speeds at key pedestrian crossings, and will implement a blended approach of both splitter islands and speed cushions, since there was not a clear community preference for one over the other. Construction of the splitter islands and the remaining concrete elements is actually complete as of last week. And so if you've been on Moorhead recently, you'll have noticed those, as well as temporary striping around the splitter islands to maintain a continuous northbound bike lane while we wait for repaving to begin. So that final phase of construction will begin in late May or early June after CU's spring semester ends. And that'll begin with milling off the existing asphalt, followed by repaving, restriping, and installation of 3 speed cushions, as well as the remaining enhancements immediately following. So all of the details are posted to the project website. Encourage everyone to take a look at that. We've shared that out to the community as well through the relationships we've built up there and contacts we've made. And I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have as we near the finish line on implementation. Yeah, Trini.
I just wanted to see if you were able to look at the delineators called the wave as part of something that could be like a temporary measure in lieu of just having paint separating cyclists from traffic.
Yes, yeah, thanks for that suggestion. Yeah, it's not currently in our toolkit for kind of products we use to vertically separate bike lanes. I need to take it back to our team and get their feedback on it. There may be strategic locations along the corridor where we can consider it, where we have the width to install, particularly at the northern end, where we may explore a little bit of vertical separation, but we are very constrained in terms of the space available to put any kind of vertical separation through the most of the corridor once you kind of Moorhead straightens out and you continue.
Because I mean, what is really interesting about these things, and maybe I can share a link to it in the chat. They're delineators, so they're like they're stronger than flex posts, but
Mhm.
the interesting thing is that they were welcomed by every community that they've been installed in because they're really pretty. And so there's this
Yeah, they-
like two way of looking at this, and everybody that rode there felt safer, even though it doesn't offer the protection that a concrete barrier would. It's still kind of like this idea of having a visual indicator that separates. And they're, I think, like $200. I mean, they're really not, they're very inexpensive considering I don't remember how big they are, but I remember thinking that it wouldn't be a huge investment. And then when you're done, you can take them somewhere else and use them as like emergency delineators in other streets. So I'll put them in the chat so other
Yeah.
tab members know.
Yeah,
what
they're
I'm-
really
Can you email that
innovative
to me,
design.
Trini?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Delineator. But thank you for looking into it, Daniel, because
Yeah.
it would be really cool.
Yeah, will do. Yeah, that's a really innovative design, and agreed they're they're a little more aesthetically pleasing than a white plastic post for sure. They're really neat.
And it showed that drivers were also willing to be more respectful. It was a really interesting thing that happened there. Okay, I'm gonna share it in the chat.
Thank you.
Okay, any other feedback for Dan? Mike?
Can you talk about the north end? There was some discussion of maybe a little bit of a two-way cycle track to get onto the into the underpass under 27th Way, Skunk Creek, and how that interfaces with that sort of intersection into the first intersection on Moorhead on the north side. What is that going to look like?
Yeah, that would probably be best shown, Mike, in a visual here. And I can screen share. So these were just the materials from our open house and online questionnaire. And you're seeing the proposed striping on the figure on the right there. And this, as you mentioned, is a short segment of two-way cycle track on the south side of this figure, kind of, south side of Moorhead, to connect the mid-block crossing to the access ramp to the underpass. And that is driven by that we don't have any space behind the curb where you see the sidewalk, the 5-foot sidewalk there on the left-hand side to kind of route those contraflow cyclists to the underpass if you were traveling westbound. So this makes that movement, kind of provides dedicated space for those northbound cyclists on Moorhead and the kind of pink dotted line here to access the underpass, or cyclists who are kind of traveling. Quite a few do cut across the parking lot today because there isn't a public path along Skunk Creek connecting to the frontage road and both directions of baseline there. So that contraflow movement would be accommodated by that short segment of cycle track.
Okay, yeah, that's me cutting across that parking lot all the time.
There's quite the social trail, actually, you can see in the aerial right
Yeah.
there. That speaks to that. Yep.
And so that is still in the preferred design?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay. I thought it
that's what I
got
was alluding to.
modified. Okay.
No.
I think I submitted a suggestion that those approach angles not be set at 90 degrees, but sort of reflect the desired lines.
Yeah, we do need to, maintain the perpendicular crossing there. There will be kind of refinements to the final layout to give more striping cues on that maneuver with turn arrows and directional
It's not
arrows.
that people don't understand what you want.
Well,
It's just they won't
yeah.
do what you want.
Yeah. Well, we hope that.
But you're
you know,
saying
the
rules
strike-
is rules and we have to follow the book and the book says 90 degrees? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, to align it with the pedestrian crossing that also exists there, we kind of want to match up the bike crossing in
Yeah,
close
Tila, I
alignment with
think
that.
this will be incredibly helpful. I mean, I went there and I actually
No, I'm not doubting that it would be helpful. I'm just saying, I think that cyclists are not going to come like up perpendicular, make a hard left turn.
Yeah.
Well,
And
you'd be
then,
surprised 'cause it does align with the crossing. So, I mean, it does make sense if you were like all of a sudden stopping, but it's a natural flow, in my opinion. I mean, because I navigated this, you know.
well, I
for-
just got told no anyway, so it's all right.
It seems like it flows well because of the crosswalk. You'll see. I mean, it's.
Okay. Any
I'm
other
very-
feedback on this?
Hey,
There's Mike. Oh, yeah, go
I
ahead, Mike.
I just clicked on the link Trini set out for these wave delineators and just wanted to clarify, right now there's no plan for anything other than paint for the bike lanes. Is that correct, Daniel?
Yes, yeah, we're looking at a short segment of vertical separation for the cycle track at this point with the resources we have. We're also space constrained, Mike, as you move further south, with the typical section of, you know, a narrow southbound buffered bike lane, the travel lanes, the northbound bike lane, and the parking there to have the space for vertical separation through this project. But could be explored as a separate effort, separate project in the future. So unfortunately, it's just with our timeline and resources for this project, we were constrained in the
Right.
space available there. So
Does look like these wave delineators or even the some other posts, there'd be room to put them in at some point, possibly.
yeah, we can look at that, you know, potentially as phasing in on some segments, but at this point, they're not part of the implementation for May or early June.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, last matter I have on the agenda is the Valmont multi-use path construction. Hi, Lindsay.
Hi everyone. I'm Lindsay Mers. I'm a principal project manager in the Capital Projects Work Group. I'm going to share my screen. Maybe.
And you're going to get to know Lindsay real well because she's also leading Iris SEEP.
I was going to say she was one of the people standing out in the snow.
I wanted it share, but I think it's going to share my Zoom screen. Does it just share the Valmont?
Just your
Okay.
presentation, yeah.
Okay. So I'm here to chat with you about Valmont Road Multi-Use Path. This is a multi-use path that will connect the existing pedestrian bridge over South Boulder Creek to 61st Street. It's very short. Just want to kind of give you an update of where we're at on the project. And so this is a new multi-use path. It's near Valmont Road. It will provide an off-street connection from 61st Street to that existing pedestrian bridge, and then a multi-use path connection, and then all the other paths that are over there by South Boulder Creek. And so this will be a 10-foot wide concrete path. There'll be a new crosswalk on the east side of Valmont Road and Butte Mill intersection. There'll also be a crosswalk on Butte Mill Road that will connect this into Stasio Drive. There is a ditch crossing as part of this project, which we're actually just going to use the existing structure, though we'll make some modifications to the walls and the railings. That there's actually not a railing currently, so we'll actually be installing a new railing. And then there'll be a temporary connection to Indian Road. We won't actually cross 61st Street at this time. That potential crossing would come as part of Boulder County's project as they continue to work on the planning for the Boulder to Erie Regional Trail, which is the BERT Trail. And for this project, our project partners were Boulder County, City Open Space and Mountain Parks, RTD, and then the Butte Mill and Jones Donnelly ditches. And so let me show you a picture that describes everything I just stepped through. And so the path starts on the west end at the existing pedestrian bridge, and it comes up alongside Valmont Road, and then we peel off and we're on RTD's property. We're actually going to be adjacent to or on top of the existing rail line there. We'll be at the, we'll cross Indian Road. We'll actually use that roadway as part of the path, cross the tracks, and then connect out to 61st, which is that temporary connection until Boulder County comes through with the future BERT project. And then we do have a crosswalk across Valmont Road on the east side of that intersection that connects down to Butte Mill Road or near Stasio Drive. And then this is the project timeline. So we did all of our conceptual design 2017 to 2020. And the RTD agreement where we allowed us to use their existing railroad alignment was finalized in 2020. We completed design and, well, we started design and permitting and are just completing our design and permitting. And so we're looking to advertise for construction this month, and that would allow us to start construction in June of 2024. And that's everything I have.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Yeah.
I've definitely heard fairly recently from a couple of families who, you know, in theory want to have their kids bike to school or bike around there, but that section of Valmont Road, because the Boulder Use paths in the area just sort of dead end there, is a bit of a no-go zone for the parents. 61st Street remains a challenge, but I will note that this connection would serve Temple Grandin School, it looks like, which is a middle and high school for predominantly autistic youth. And I think there is a call for it. I'm thrilled to see this. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, I'm thrilled too. I often bike out there and it's weird the way that path just ends. I hadn't even thought about there being an old railroad track out there. I guess that's totally defunct railroad track.
It is. It's very defunct.
And it's very overgrown. You wouldn't even see it. You have to really trek back to see it.
Trini, do you have any comment?
No, I'm really happy.
Okay, I just saw you unmute, so.
No. I just wanted to say
All right. Darcy, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add a little thanks for this as well. I mean, it is that path to nowhere that I'm really glad will be linked up, and especially as like you said, the BERT Trail comes online and gets hopefully developed within the next, many years. But it is great to see these connections built out. So thanks for your work on this.
Yeah, you're welcome. I agree. The BERT Trail is very exciting. I was on that committee because of this kind of end of the project, and yeah, that would be an amazing project.
Okay.
Well,
Thanks
thank you.
very much.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that wraps up matters from staff. Yes. Okay. Matters from the board. Pretty much just a little bit of housekeeping, I think, because last month we had, typically around this time of year, we discuss occasionally TAB members are asked to collaborate with other boards or send an envoy or a liaison to a temporary outreach group, for instance, like for the airport discussions and things like that. And so we just wanted to cover who's sort of on deck and who's waiting in the wings for when these meetings occur. They're pretty infrequent. And I think at the moment we only have 2, and I didn't write them down. So Meredith, can you help remind me what we're looking
Vision
for?
Zero.
2 people.
which I can continue to volunteer for.
Okay, so there was the Vision Zero like outreach
Community Partnership Committee.
Thank you. And so I think that last month we decided that Trini was the primary, and since I was the only person continuing, I would be the secondary. I have served on it for a while. It hasn't been terribly active recently, but if someone else is interested in being a backup, and of course there's nothing in preventing both 2 TAB members from going to any one of these meetings. And when they happen, they tend to be kind of interesting. So if someone else wants to be on the Vision Zero community partnership, it's usually with neighboring cities, as well as there's often a representative from state DOT, state highway patrol, Boulder Community Health Partnership, Boulder County. So just people putting their heads together about, Vision Zero progress and actions. If that's of interest to anyone, I'm happy to hand off my second place seat but I'm also happy to just carry on. Cool. I'll just carry on then. What was the other one, Meredith?
The PICTIC.
Oh, PICTIC. Yes, of
Pedestrian
course.
Crossing
So
Treatment.
pedestrian crossing treatment implementation guidelines update.
Happy to do.
And I think we'll be, so there's going to be some public outreach happening around that, hopefully also incorporating stuff that that the former pedestrian action committee did. I think Darcy, you were involved in that, right? You were presenting to that.
Yeah, I was
Effort.
involved in that. I'd be happy to be the alternate if do you
Well,
wanna
we need a
her?
primary and an alternate, I
Okay.
think, still.
I'd be
So
happy to be the primary for that because it's you know, a top concern of mine. So yeah, happy to do that.
okay, great.
How often does that group meet?
No idea. It's going to be
Yeah.
starting up, and it's not going to be too long, I think, right?
That's right. Yeah, Devin, if you're there and want to chime in on just cadence and if we have an idea of kind of what we're looking as far as commitment to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're looking at similar to the speed limit setting project, which I know Gila had some involvement in that, but we're looking at, I think, 2 or 3 meetings of that group. And the first, I think we're targeting for May.
Yeah, great. I'd be happy to represent us there.
Okay.
And
So I realize I'm a bit remiss because we only have 4 out of 5 members here. And, you know, from what I understand, this might actually be right up Jen Oaks alley.
Right.
So Mike, not to pull the rug out from under you, but I think we're going to leave Darcy as primary for right now and then revisit if we need a second or if we, whatever, you know. I think that's where I'm chair's prerogative. I'm going to leave it there for now. Are there any other outreachy liaison-y things we need to consider at the moment? Those are the only 2 I'm aware of. Meredith?
Oh,
That's
I'm
it?
sorry. Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Well, and again, we can maybe, you know, next month, if we have all 5 of us, if there's something else that comes up, it would be more appropriate then anyway. And then the last thing was the 2024 TAB retreat. I know I've talked to Darcy and Mike about the sort of availability on dates. Trini, I'm not sure if I've touched base with you. I think I did. No, I did not. So typically we have a retreat pretty shortly after we seat the new members. It could be in person. This one will be my 8th one.
Lucky.
And it's my least favorite thing to do. I'm going to be frank about that. So they have been sometimes just all day in-person meetings, but there's, you know, food. And then of course with COVID, they've been remote. They're often, one time we had to kind of reconvene and do it in 2 different sessions. We have had a mediator, moderator, and so it's yet to be unseen, or yet to be seen how we're going to organize it this year. I would say have in mind at least a 4-hour chunk of your time. Natalie's frowning at that, but that sounds about right.
Yes, that's right. Sorry, I was thinking about something else and making notes.
Yeah, and I know Mike was,
She was hoping for
unavailable
8
for the
hours.
beginning of May.
All day.
Day. But I'm thinking sometime in the middle of May, and what occasionally we have done is, as you know, as board members, we meet on the 2nd Monday of the month, but we hold the 4th Monday of the month sort of open for other business. And often that's when we decide to schedule the retreat. So I'm thinking about Monday, May 20th, but really kind of anytime in that week that works with staff. And so if you could avoid for the moment scheduling anything really, you know, big vacations where you're not going to have any Wi-Fi or anything, we might choose to do it in person. We'll kind of circle back. I will circle back informally with you guys as thinking is happening.
That is the 3rd Monday, but that's better than the
2nd and 4th.
the 4th. Better than the 4th. The 4th is Memorial Day.
Memorial Day.
Oh yeah, okay, 13th and 27th. Okay, hold on. We get the 20th.
So yeah, the 20th works great.
Okay, well, we'll see what works with staff as well. But you know, let's try to think about the beginning of that week there as a time for our retreat.
Just so you guys know that from the 13th to the 15th, I'm in Washington, D.C. We're hosting 120 families to go speak at the Capitol. So I cannot be available, but I could do the 6th or the 20th.
Okay.
Okay.
So does that mean you will not be at the next tab meeting then on the 13th?
The 13th of, no,
Okay.
I probably won't be able to.
Okay.
I'll have to see, but I mean, it's just, I can't dedicate 4 hours. I mean, I could
Sure.
call in and check in and so forth.
Gotcha. Okay, and then I'm also interested in if there are any particular topics or focus areas that you as tab members want us to be thinking about and talking about at our retreat. I would say before you kind of blurt anything out, I would like to assign a little bit of homework, and that is at least read a synopsis or summary of City Council's retreat and their discussion items and their areas of focus. And see what sort of resonates with you, because one thing I would love to have this year's tab be able to do is be effective at something and actually put its arms around something we can accomplish. Sometimes in these retreats are the consensus ideas that float to the top are really terrific and laudable, but unachievable. And I would like to kind of focus us on what's achievable and amenable to progress and action. It doesn't mean we have to completely achieve what, the world domination that we want, but to make sure that it does sort of align with and cohere with what City Council has already determined is going to be sort of the focus areas and direction for the city and for the staff and city departments this year. So I will send out a reminder email in about 10 days, asking for you to give me individual feedback. If you have any focus areas or ideas or things that you want us to consider on the tab retreat, and we will definitely be back and forth about what that looks like and how it looks. I will be in touch with you about that, but first, just sort of get your head around where it looks like the city is going under the current council is your homework. And I'll email you in 10 days and we won't have done our homework, and then I'll email you again in 14 days and we will.
Very good. Very good.
Very good.
I was just going to say it was exciting to see transportation so prominently show up in the council retreat. So yeah. Great.
And I would add that although the retreat is a good place to start, it doesn't include everything. For example, I believe they didn't touch on parking, but that's because they already had agreed on that on their agenda, parking reform. So
it was, I think we discussed it a little bit on maybe Wednesday on the first day, to confirm that it was a work plan item.
Okay, that's all I have on the retreat at the moment. Any other items, open comment from the board? Any other burning issues, questions, recipes? Hopes, wishes, dreams?
I'm just liking the hour early.
Super cool, right? I know.
That's great.
So
Nice
unlike
job.
me.
Yeah.
Okay, well, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Well, someone has to move, right?
Right, thank you, Darcy.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Darcy moves to adjourn. Trini seconds.
Yes.
It's been delightful to meet you. Hopefully Jen can join us next time. But until then, I'll probably see you around town.
Wonderful.
Take
Thank
care.
you
Have a good
all.
night, everyone.
Great
Thank
to see
you.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.